All right, 5.3, solving quadratic equations by graphing and factoring. Our objectives, we're going to be able to solve quadratic equations by graphing or factoring, and also determine a quadratic function from its roots. So let's find the zeros by using a graph and table. All right, so we're going to find the zeros of f of x, that is x squared minus 6x plus 8, by using a graph and a table. So first, we know a is positive, so the parabola opens up because there's a 1. Since c equals 8, we know that the parabola has a y-intercept at 8. And then to find the vertex, we use x equals negative b over 2a. We plug in b is negative 6, 1 is a. We do our math, we get 3. Plug it back into the function, and you get negative 1. So our vertex is at 3, negative 1. Now we can use the table, same function. All right, we already did on this one, so we know 3, negative 1 is one of our points. Pick points on either side of that. We plug 1 into the equation, we get 3. We plug 2 in, we get 0. We plug 4 in, we get 0. We plug 5 in, we get 3. Okay. We can graph the known points from before. So we had our y-intercept here and our vertex here. And then we use the table to get other points, so we plot those on our graph. And then we graph it. We know what our graph is to find the zeros. The zeros are the values on the x-axis where our graph crosses it, so right here and right here. We also know that from our table because our y values are 0. So our zeros for this graph are x equals 2 and x equals 4. So you try number 1, find the zeros using a graph in the table. Same way we did it. If you go to graph it and you pick the points in your table and you don't get your 0 right away, graph what you have, get an idea where the zeros are so you can check and see if they're them. All right, now we're going to learn to do it by factoring. All right, so there's 4 different versions of quadratic functions. You have it when it's both signs are positive. Okay, so we have a positive here and a positive here. We have negative, positive, positive, negative, and negative, negative. Okay, we need to find the factors of C. So that whatever value is in for C, we're going to find the factors of C. Okay. When we go to factor these, I'm going to label this so you know that when we factor them, we're going to have a larger number factor and a smaller number factor. Okay, so when you have both positives, when you factor this, you're going to get x plus the large number times x plus the small number equals 0. Because since these are both positive, all right, when we break this down, both of our values are also going to be positive. All right, when we have negative positive, okay, our factors are going to break down to negative and negative. All right, the reason we're getting these values, right, these are factors. 2 numbers multiplied together need to be this. So a positive times a positive is a positive. And then when we take these 2 numbers here and we add them, okay, positive plus positive equals positive. So similarly on this one, all right, when we multiply them together, they need to be positive. So negative times negative is positive. When we add 2 negatives together, we also get a negative value. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing here. We need to get a negative value for our C. So multiply 2 numbers and get a negative. The only way you can get to do that is if they have opposite signs. Right? When we add them together, it needs to be positive. So if I'm adding a positive and a negative number together, the positive number needs to be larger. That's why the positive with the larger. That way when I add them, I get a positive value. Similarly with negatives, so when I multiply them together, it needs to be negative, so that means I need a negative and a positive value. But when I add them, I need to get a negative value. Okay, so that means the larger number needs to be negative and the smaller number needs to be positive. All right, so this is important stuff to know. The more you see this and the more you do this, the better you'll be at remembering that. So let's put it into use. All right, we need to find the zeros of x squared minus 4x minus 12 by factoring. Okay, I need to find the factors of c, which is 12. So our number is 12. What are the factors of 12? Well, I have 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. Okay? Since they're both negative, so the one I talked about, I need two numbers that multiply to be negative and then add to be negative. Alright, when I have negative, negative, I know that I need opposite signs. Okay? Multiply to get negative, I need opposite signs. Okay? And then I need the larger number to be negative because when I add them together, it needs to be a negative value. So a large number is negative, smaller number is positive. So I'm going to put a label to all my larger numbers. My larger are the two factors. All right, so here are the larger numbers of the factors. I put a negative sign with each of them. Okay. Now I need to find the two of them that add up to be the value in b, which in this case is negative 4. So add the numbers together. 1 plus negative 12, 2 plus negative 6, and 3 plus negative 4. My values are negative 11, negative 4, negative 1. Well, I needed negative 4. So those are my factors, so I write them. X minus 6, because the larger number needed to be the negative. X plus 2, set them equal to 0. Then break it apart, set each value equal to 0. So x minus 6 equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0. And add 6 to both sides, you get x equals 6. Subtract 2 from both sides, you get x equals negative 2. So my zeros by factoring are 6, x equals 6, x equals negative 2. And then you check it. Just plug the values you got back into the equations and do the math. Okay? When you do the math, they need to both equal 0. That's how you know you found the zeros. Check it to make sure you're right. Now you try number 2. Find the factors. Find the zeros by factoring. Answer it online. Now there's another way to find zeros by factoring. Notice how there's no c value. Okay, it's just 3x squared plus 18x. So whenever you have something like that and you don't have a plus c or minus c at the end, all right, you need to factor out the greatest common factor. In this case, it's 3x. I can take 3x out of both terms. When I do that, I get 3x times x plus 6. Set each of the factors equal to 0. You get 3x equals 0. You get x plus 6 equals 0. Subtract 6 from both sides, you get x equals 6. Divide both sides over here by 3, you get x equals 0. So my zeros are 0 and negative 6. Plug the 0 and the negative 6 in, do the math, make sure they equal 0. That's how you know you found the zeros. Now it's your turn. Find the zeros. Enter it online.